Google announces new surprise layoffs set to rock the company. Now, in addition to that, the Federal Reserve is under a state of panic because they have their own round, hopefully, of layoffs coming right behind the new president entering office. And so today we're going to go over all of the most recent economic news. And obviously, our co host, Mitch Vexler, is going to share with you his expert opinion, being that he's an expert in many things, one of them being quantitative financing. Mitch Vexler, happy Christmas Eve, sir. It's nice to be home. How are you today?
Yeah, it's good to have you home. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's good to be home. It was, I told Mitch guys that if I didn't leave with my wife on a plane, that I didn't know when I was coming back. And if you guys don't know, I've been helping as best I can in Tennessee and Western North Carolina provide public awareness on the devastation that's going on. Which brings me to my first thing. Let's talk about all the rumors that we hear, Mitch, about how well the economy is doing. The first thing, guys, is if the economy was doing well, there wouldn't be an absolute catastrophe happening right now. The national deficit for the fiscal year of 2025, this is not even the quarter, this is 2 months. And what you guys see on your screen right now is the reckless spending habits that's basically going to fraud. It's not going to the victims on the ground. We're in a deficit spending already 2 months into the year, $624 billion, Mitch. And I want you to break this down. What we're saying there is we're saying that money be used to gaslight the public and to prevent us temporarily from going into a recession or probably a depression, which ultimately is going to make the matters much, much worse. The inflation is absolutely evil. Mitch, what's your take on $624 billion in deficit spending in just 2 months, which, by the way, that's up 64% year over year? What do you got for us, brother?
Well, if A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. And what you're looking at there, those dollars are simply inflationary dollars. That is money that's being equity stripped because that money has to come from somewhere. So, or it just doesn't get paid off, at which point you have inflation and or hyperinflation, and it still has to come from somewhere, right? Mom and pop have the money in the pensions and the 401ks that invest into these entities that help support the debt. This is money. This is a deficit that doesn't even exist today to cover it off. So then the question becomes, where's that money going to come from? Well, the answer is in valuation of dollars being reduced. If A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. What you're looking at is pure inflation. Inflation is a tax.
Mitch, I can't help but worry. First of all, I don't think any president is our savior. For me, and we've been kind of beating the drums on this whole thing, the government is guilty until proven innocent. I say that because of the reckless spending habits and the carnage that we're seeing boots on the ground from the lack of government help. Now, I sit back, Mitch, and I'm hearing these things. Obviously, we've been researching this a lot. You've helped teach me an overwhelming amount of information, sir. I will forever be grateful. But I sit back and I ask myself, what can we do to stop this from happening? I'm super concerned. First of all, when Trump gets into the office, he can either let it collapse, which is, yes, we need that, or he can continue to print money, mortgage-backed securities, quantitative easing, which I'm very, very concerned about. Are you concerned that if Trump, when Trump gets in, I said if, I know he's elected, but I have my concerns. When Trump gets into office, do you think he's just going to add to the inflation by creating an additional stimulus package or quantitative easing? Or do you think he's going to let it collapse? What are your thoughts
Well,
on that?
I've said publicly that the doors of the Federal Reserve need to be chained. And just over the weekend, Elon Musk came out and said that the Federal Reserve has way too many employees. And for what it's worth, I also did some more research on Friday and found out that the average salary is about $300,000 at the Federal Reserve against 23,000 employees. And when you see what you just showed with those deficit dollars, this is all allegedly controlled by the Federal Reserve. They're allowing money to be spent. Now the government's spending it, but the Federal Reserve is throttling back or throttling up, throttling down the interest rates to help offset whatever mechanism they're trying to do, which in reality is do nothing more than support the banks. So the answer to the question is there will be, give or take, 700 banks that have to go bankrupt. They're bankrupt now. They're just dead man walking. So you've got multiple problems here, but there's no doubt that the Trump operation administration does fully understand what's going on here, because otherwise Elon Musk would not have come out with that statement. And they're aiming for something. Nobody knows what the end result will be, but also that came out kind of the answer roundabout way to your question. What can be done to stop this? Well, in Montgomery County, in Chicago, as we exposed, there was a 1,400% tax increase headed their way. Now, it didn't go through, but the fact is they tried it, which was criminal. Then a week ago, the mayor in Chicago cut a deal, which because he receives money from the school districts. So the higher the value of the school districts, the more money they generate through the taxes, then he's reassured of an election because he's got a war chest that's absolutely massive. And you see the problem? That's criminal. So these things, be it the real estate taxes that go to these school districts, are criminal. So what can we do to help people? And that is what we're doing. Expose the fraud. Once you know what the fraud is, then it's up to the district attorneys to get involved and say, that's it. We're not going to do this anymore. And the DAs will move when they're put under local, because all real estate is local. When they're put under local pressure by mom and pop, get off your and prosecute. That's how you fix this problem.
Indeed, in January, you guys is right around the corner. We will be going hard to the paint as far as trying to train you guys and teach you guys how to protest the value on your property taxes. That's something that we can all do to make a profound difference. And I'm going to be marching in there myself with a camera, and I'm going to be pointing it at the Central Appraisal District, ARB, which is the Appraisal Review Board. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that. Very important. You guys follow along. Now, obviously, Mitch, $300,000 average salary for 23,000 employees. I mean, the job of the Federal Reserve is just to hurt us and to cripple middle class and to prop up the elite. I hope you guys understand that. And I also hope you guys understand how vital it is to figure out a way to remove property taxes. If we have property taxes, we will never own property ever. And I see that in North Carolina and Tennessee. These people that lost their home and loved ones, if they don't pay their property taxes, that government, that county is going to sell their lien info, their property tax lien to the highest bidder. And I already see it going on YouTube. Content creators that I try to respect are selling courses now on property tax liens. That's straight evil, and that's just adding to the problem. So we've got a lot of problems. We'll move on now. Thank you, Mitch. That was a great breakdown. Let's move on to this article. You referenced it shortly. Now, this is from Zero Hedge. We got some housekeeping at the end that I'm going to tell you guys. Mitch may be able to get on Zero Hedge. I'm a little excited. Mitch is humble. I don't even know if you want me to talk about it, Mitch, but I am, because I am excited for you, brother, and I think it's well earned. But the name of this article is Elon Musk. The Fed is absurdly overstaffed. This came out yesterday, December 23rd. Again, you guys, happy Christmas Eve or Merry Christmas Eve and happy holidays as well. The Ron Paul revolution. And Mitch, I'm a little tired still. Just stop me if I mispronounce anything, which I often do. And I'm sorry, guys. I am with the slow reading group. Hooked on Phonics did not work for me. The Ron Paul revolution could be on the horizon as President-elect Donald Trump prepares to take office next month. Elon Musk, one of Trump's top advisors, wrote on X about creating efficiencies at the Federal Reserve. And me and Mitch can pretty much tell you what to do right now. Lock them up, chain it up. No more Federal Reserve. They only help the banks. They do not help us as Americans. Remember that, you guys. The Fed is absurdly overstaffed, Musk wrote on X early Monday morning. That's a good sign. Responding to a post about the Fed's latest interest rate decision, the Fed is absolutely overstaffed. Now, here's a map right here of the Federal Reserve. A recent note pointed out that about 23,000 people work at the Federal Reserve in Washington and 12 regional reserve banks across the U.S. So you guys can kind of see right here the 12 different locations. One right here looks like in Dallas. That's pretty interesting. But there's more to it than that. The financial statements reveal that the Board of Governors expenses and currency costs were $2 billion. That's money that could be used on the ground in Tennessee and in West North Carolina, by the way. $2 billion could help a lot of people. If this constitutes salaries, then total salaries and pensions cost at the Fed become closer to $7 billion that again is leveraged up, guys. Divided that figure by 23,000 people equals around $304,000 per employee. That's absolutely insane. This is the breakdown of employees by function and organization. The vast majority is at the Federal Reserve. So it just goes on here. It's just I get choked up, Mitch, because I wish I would have known about this sooner, and I wish that we could have been working on this a lot sooner. I feel like we could have helped a lot more people, but this is what this says. Musk and Vivek have been tasked with streamlining federal operations through the Department of Government Efficiency, or Dodge. The department aims to create a leaner, more efficient government, including 2 trillion in spending cuts. Imagine that money going to the victims from the hurricane. These guys are absolutely abandoned. If it's a great economy, if everyone is rich, where are you guys? Why aren't you helping them? That's boots on the ground analysis, testimony. The economy is dangerously crippled, and just it's gaslighting at every turn, Mitch. The wish list of potential efficiencies continue to grow with a really bold plan from day one. Days before the presidential election, Ron Paul asked on X if he could join Dodge in Trump's second term. Musk responded, "Would be great to have Ron Paul as part of the Department of Government Efficiency." Ron Paul wrote on, "We should wean ourselves off of the Fed. Why wean? Just strip it off like a band-aid because you've already destroyed us Americans. Like we weaned ourselves off the mainstream media." I mean, it's an absolute joke. Let's not forget about 400 PhD economists at the Fed failed to forecast the inflationary storm triggered by the rapid expansion of money supply by trillions, only for them to dismiss it as transitory. You guys remember that? Jerome Powell said inflation is transitory. Now we are stuck in it and we are rotting in inflation, which is fraud, greed, and corruption. Such a massive misreading underscores the urgent need for restructuring. Errors of this magnitude are unacceptable. 400 PhD economists got this wrong. So, Mitch, can you explain to the viewers? Some of them, most of our viewers are figuring this out. They're figuring out the fraud. They're figuring out that the Federal Reserve is keeping the elite propped up, not us Americans. What do you think about what he said? Do you think that we should be weaned off the Federal Reserve? I think that we should be just shut them down immediately. But can you talk about what they believe the risks are of closing down the Fed immediately?
I'll take the opposite side of that argument. What are the risks of not closing it down? Yellen came out with that statement, well, it's just going to be transitory, and Powell bit off on it and repeated it multiple times. It wasn't transitory. 2024, 1.8 trillion in deficit money that doesn't exist, right? It's a deficit. It has to be made up. How do you make it up? You deflate the dollars and pay it off with cheaper dollars. So, over and above that, go backwards for a second. To what benefit is the Federal Reserve to mom and pop effective today? What is the benefit of the Federal Reserve in their life on a daily basis? The answer is zero. Then we take the next element, which is okay, we got all these economists. Who pays the salary for the economists? If it's the Federal Reserve, that's the equivalent of robbing Peter to pay Paul. Those economists have a slave master. Those economists preach what it is the policy to be of the Federal Reserve. Therefore, you go full circle. The Federal Reserve has no right and does nothing in anybody's life except it costs $2 billion a year to support it, for which you get a $1.8 trillion deficit in 2024 and 624 billion as of this morning, give or take, right, for the new fiscal year, couple months. Therefore, it is the question which must be asked, what are the risks of not closing it down? Much greater than keeping it afloat.
Yeah, and Mitch, I have seen about as dark as that can get. It's hard for me to explain to people that they spent 300 billion on the Green New Deal in 2024, Ukraine, Israel, hundreds of billions of dollars when they can't even give a billion to one, just $1 billion to the victims through Hurricane Helene. It doesn't make sense to me. You know, I think people should be not. I don't want to say violent. We should not be violent, but up in arms about what's going on. And I would encourage people, if you guys don't believe us by now, and we're just using the math, we don't have to speculate. We're just using the math, guys. If you really want to know the truth, go out to East Tennessee, West North Carolina, and you will see for yourself the absolute catastrophe that's happening. They don't have, apparently, they don't have no money. Cities don't have no money. FEMA doesn't have no money. The states don't have no money. And we see what that looks like. And it looks like death, and it looks like rotting, and it's really, really horrible. And so, Mitch, let's go into this real quick. I want to get your opinion on the interest rates. Obviously, this doesn't really matter. This is not affecting us as consumers. Why do people care about what happens to the elite? We should only care that the elite fall. That's it. Because they've been getting rich off our backs and our families, and stripping us of our wealth and whatnot. But here is CME Fraud Watch. I mean, CME Fed Watch, not Fraud Watch, same thing. But they're saying, Mitch, that in January, first of all, we're sitting at 425 to 450 right here. So they're saying January, no cut. Okay, let me go to March. They're saying March about 50-50, but it's leaning towards no cut in March. Then we go to May. It's a little bit more split in May. But my question is Mitch, what does it really matter if they're cutting interest rates or not? And also, can you explain to the viewers how good economies thrive with high interest rates? Good economies don't need interest rate cuts, but that's exactly what's going on. So on one hand, they're saying the economy is great, but on the other hand, we need to cut interest rates. That is contrary to one another. Can you explain that, sir?
Yeah, before I do, I want to go back on a statement you made. You called them elites. They are not elite in any form, fashion whatsoever. What they are grifters. When you receive a salary based on taking money from mom and pop, only to destroy the foundations of mom and pop, you are a grifter. And that is the big difference here. Now, with regard to the interest rates, well, isn't it interesting that Powell lowered by a quarter basis point that day within hours? Because I was watching the chart, the interest rates on the 10-year went up 2.69%. So you have to divide what is the economy that we're speaking of versus the picture that the Federal Reserve wishes to paint. So on one hand, the Federal Reserve over here is the government. The higher the interest rates, then you run into a problem where, because the government has to be able to support those interest rates. So what is Powell doing? He's lowering interest rates. On the other hand, on the street, the market are raising interest rates. Why? Because they know that trouble is coming. Interest rate is a reflection of the risk in the marketplace. So you have two different worlds that are being crushed for purposes of a narrative. And the narrative is a false narrative, but that is what is happening. So, well, we're going to lower interest rates as if that's going to affect the single family homeowners or the commercial developers or anybody having to do that has to borrow money at a market rate. Problem is, it isn't true. The charts on the futures are going up. The Federal Reserve lowered a quarter basis point, and it was a big up move. 2.69% on the 10-year is a big move. So the point of the matter is Powell can't be trusted. The Federal Reserve can't be trusted. And the net result of their existence, and as I've said, we've documented it. They've never been on the right side of a move since the day they were created. And the truth of the matter is, they have to go. The Federal Reserve needs to be shut down, and market interest rates let the market do what the market's going to do. They'll determine what those interest rates are. But trouble is coming, and this stuff has got to be worked out. That's the formal term, as a workout.
Well, it's hard as a consumer sitting back. I'll be 41 this month. Took me a long time to realize this, Mitch. They're a bunch of liars, man. I mean, they're literally lying their butts off at our expense. I mean, how many times, and this is to the viewers now, and I want to ask you, all of the viewers, how many times do we allow them to lie to us before we say we cannot trust them? What you're saying is a lie. You need to be shut down. That's our money as the taxpayers, guys. 70% of GDP is from consumer spending. The rest of it is just BS nonsense. That's just loopholes and inflation and all kinds of crazy stuff. We're in control. When are we going to act like we're in control? When are we going to stay in control and take
We're,
the power? Go ahead, Mitch. What were you going to say?
Mom and pop's money is coming into the government, right? Your taxes are here. That money is going up to the government level. These people at the government level exist on the backs of the real estate taxes paid down here or on the backs of the federal taxes. Either way, it's on the backs of the taxpayers. So now let's invert it. Your equity is going down because it's being equity stripped, and yet the governmental population up here is existing. This is the problem. There's too much of this. It's not that taxes shouldn't be paid. It's that taxes should be paid to create an asset. And therein, when there is no asset and you're creating liabilities at the federal government level, which is what you're doing, that's what a deficit is. A deficit is a liability. Well, all that fat that created it and all that fat that said, well, we need this because every stitch of it, if you think about it, are as a result of grifters. Well, I have an idea. Let's go create the Green New Deal. It's a Green New scam. There's no math to back it up, right? And that is the problem with all this stuff. You have people that have these ideas that want to create an idea on the back of the mom and pop taxpayer while equity stripping their money. These two things can't exist on the same plane, and eventually they will blow up. And that is what we're starting to see now. That is why you're seeing the futures on the 10-year note run up, even though the Federal Reserve is saying, oh, no, we're lowering interest rates. You can lower it to zero, but if the market's got them up at 10%, it's 10%. And that, by the way, does prove there is no reason to have the Federal Reserve right now today. You've got proof on the table right in front of your eyes. So it's time to get rid of the grifters. It's not that taxes shouldn't be paid, because to have a proper society that's running efficiently, you need taxes to pay for infrastructure. Right now, they're paying for all sorts of stuff that's got nothing to do with infrastructure, basically, so that they can keep their job as a grifter.
And I will say, Mitch, that YouTube is definitely full of grifters. Even the people that I used to respect and even think that were my friends, they're giant grifters. And I can't tell you how heartbreaking that is because of the people that they're sucking in. And some people, and then some people that have an abundance of money, and they want to play around and throw their money here or there, so be it. But I'm talking about the mom and pops that barely are hanging on, that are taking people's advice and they're over leveraging themselves. We don't want to over leverage ourselves right now. Maybe over leverage ourselves when the prices are going down, when no one wants to buy, right? Don't be buying when everyone wants to buy. Everyone. It's super risky, but let's go on to Google right now. Let me read a little bit of this. This came out 2 days ago. Google CEO reveals major job cuts as part of an efficiency move. Google managers are now at risk. Okay, now there's a few things here, and I'll read this very quickly. But more layoffs coming from Google right before the holidays. Google has laid off 10% of managers, directors, and VPs. More than 1,300 Googlers have already lost their jobs in 2024, and a lot more are going to lose them coming into 2025. The company is facing threats from rivals and regulatory bodies. They just lost a huge antitrust lawsuit, if I'm not mistaken. Google has reportedly cut 10% of its managers, directors, and VP roles in an ongoing effort to boost efficiency and improve the running costs of the company. So, why hire the managers to begin with? Right? Aren't managers supposed to boost efficiency? I'm tired of being lied to, Mitch. I'm so sick of it. The media has lost all my trust. The municipalities have lost all my trust. Ugh, even some content creators have lost all my trust. This is just a very sad, sad situation for America and for really anyone that just wants the truth so we can maneuver properly. The news comes at the end of a troubling year for the company, although layoffs have been nowhere near the 13,000 plus seen during 2023. So a lot of people got laid off in 2023. Hundreds have lost their jobs at the company as part of several rounds of layoffs, including 1,000 at the start of 2024 and further 300 in May. The most recent change announced by Google CEO in a recent all hands meeting is hoped to simplify the organizational structure. Google is laying off its own managers. Employees familiar with the matter shared some managerial roles were being cut altogether, while others would transform into non managerial roles. This commonly used technique is designed to reduce layers in a company's organizational structure in an effort to boost efficiency. And I'm sure their stock rallied on this because one thing that we know, Mitch, is the stock market loves when people lose their job. The reality is that this is just another move forming part of the company's overall ambition to be more efficient. They set a goal in September 2022 to become 20% more efficient. Just might as well lay off people, huh? That's smart. I guess his next major round of layoffs affecting 12,000 in one fell swoop likely addressed a big portion of that. However, this may not be enough for Google, which has come under threat in more than one area. Its artificial intelligence efforts have already been dampened by OpenAI's immeasurable success with ChatGPT, and now that tool is threatening to market dominance of Google.com. Separately, Google's search market dominance has recently come under fire, with other areas of the business also open to potential regulatory action. So, Mitch, we know that we don't get the truth. We get the layoffs, and then sometime after we get the truth. Is this these layoffs? Okay, for two questions. Number one, is there going to be more layoffs going into 2025? And number two, is these round of layoffs? Do you think it's more the inflation or mismanagement? What do you think the bigger problem is here, sir?
Well, actually, the bigger problem is what this channel has seen. Google owns YouTube. And the truth of the matter is that the truth is the truth, not a shadow banned misrepresentation, misdirection of the truth. So, what has Google been doing? Google was no fan of the truth. Google was a supporter of all these weird ideas, Marxist ideas. And for what it's worth, Marx was a drunk. So basically, they bit off on this idea, well, we'll just follow this Marxist rabbit trail. Well, so now they're getting rid of all the people that were part of that Marxist rabbit trail because it didn't work. And it won't work with this new administration. So what you're seeing is the layoffs in this particular case of people that should not have been hired in the first place, which, as we have said in previous firings, that is mismanagement. When you hire people to follow a political idea, those people are eventually going to be removed from their job, fired from their job, let go, whatever, because the leadership of that entity decided to take a political position, and that's not the job of your company. The job of your company is to make money. So at the tail end, Travis, who's really responsible? Yeah, you're right. It's the management. They were trying to sell snake oil, right? Marxist ideas are snake oil. And snake oil salesmen have existed for hundreds of years. It's nothing new. But when it blows up and it has debt associated with it, which is what you're seeing, Federal Reserve, 1.8 trillion, the ramifications of this, if this is not worked out quickly, the ramifications will be a greater depression, in my humble opinion, than the original depression. It'll be much greater. You'll end up, because my math says around 35% unemployment. Something has to give. And reality, Google was involved in it, YouTube, Facebook, they all participated in it. And in those years that they were participating in it, at least, let's go back 4 to 5 years, they were participating in it full throttle. Look at the economic damage. Look at the deficit. Look at these problems. Where is this money going to come from to pay for this? And as I've said, 30 cents on the dollar, receiving 30 cents on the dollar is better than receiving 0 cents on the dollar.
Well said, sir. We're going to go on to the housekeeping. We want to update you guys on a whole bunch of stuff that's going on behind the scenes. But before I do that, I want to get your opinion, Mitch, as we go into 2025 and more people are becoming aware, potential there'll be mass layoffs in the government sector. I want to talk about your opinions on how to avoid losing your job and how to put yourself in a position to where if you do lose your job, you can rebound pretty quickly. You don't want to lose a job during these inflation times and during all of this carnage and disarray and everyone being bankrupt. So a few things that I want to say is first of all, if a company that you work for joined the dark side, so to speak, and they got out of their lane and they got political, then I mean anything could happen. You can lose your job tomorrow. You don't know what they're doing behind the scenes all the time. So I'm just going to go on what I know you could do to avoid a job, losing your job, and that's quite simple. You guys outwork Just try to outwork people, have a great attitude, and try to put yourself in a position to be an unreplaceable asset. If you go to work being lazy or just burnt out, and it's okay to be burnt out, but if you show it, it's not going to look good. So become an asset, have a great attitude, and stack your resume up. I have a resume right here in the store. I can pull it out right now. It's about, I think it's 8 pages now. People are like, oh, only one page, only one page. I don't care. I have a 2 page resume. It's actually 1 page and a little bit onto the second page, but I have letters of recommendation. I have references. I have all letters of certificate for various customer service jobs, and I'll send that whole thing in. And then the thing is that people are forgetting, Mitch, is they don't follow up. They'll have an interview or they'll send the resume in and they won't follow up. Follow up, you guys, is key. And if you're working somewhere and it's in a customer service job, remember, develop a relationship with the customer. People want to be served when they're out there shopping for overpriced items. And that includes you, waiters and waitresses. Develop a relationship, say please and thank you. All of that matters. Remember your roots. And that's what I would say. Mitch, can you give the viewers, before we go into the housekeeping, any opinions on how to, number one, keep their job? And number two, if they lose their job, how can they get a job back fairly quickly in a situation to where we are in a depression, we are in a recession, and there's layoffs everywhere? How does someone hedge on that, hedge for that?
Two things. Whatever they write in that resume, you better be able to do. We've had people come in wanting to pick up positions in what we would call industrial accounting, and they weren't capable in two areas. They couldn't spell, and their math was pathetic, yet they were asking for jobs as industrial accountants. So if your resume is being put out into the marketplace, whatever is in that document better be truthful. In other words, you have to be able to perform to the standards that you set in writing. The other thing is, as interesting as this may sound, becoming a more well rounded individual through education, not even necessarily having to do with what your job is. It's a crazy thing, but if you can have a conversation with somebody about something like landscaping, or that you're into gardening, and you can actually articulate, well, we have these type of soils at my house and we're growing this and we're growing that, it's another lead in to have a conversation where somebody can see that you've got multiple layers of depth to you. Just somebody who says, well, uh, I make this widget. Okay, great, but how do I know that you're going to get along with the other employees on the floor? So it needs to be a team. A corporation that's run, it's called a culture. And if it's run properly, it's got a good, solid culture. That is a necessity. So becoming a more well-rounded person, it could be anything from, well, I fixed my house, I built the door, I did this, I did that. Those things are skills that you would be shocked that when you have a conversation with a potential employer, that they'll pick up on more than somebody handing them a resume because they've already seen 20 resumes. They're looking for something that's different. Be a more well-rounded person and be able to hold a conversation. Okay, now you got something.
That's well said. Ah, you always outdo me, Mitch. You always outdo me, buddy. I just got to get you boots on the ground to North Carolina and Tennessee. You guys comment below if you want Mitch to come out with me. I'm going to be going
Uh,
back out there. Yeah, I already know they want you to, but we're going to try to get Mitch out there. I left my truck out there. So let's move on to the, housekeeping. So we're going to go into a couple things behind the scenes. I want you guys to know, Mitch and I both want you to know we are working diligently behind the scenes to try to improve the community of real estate mindset and just the community in whole in the United States. So the first thing I wanted to show you guys is the new channel that I made. It's called The Mindset. We got throttled back pretty hardcore by covering the boots on the ground. We got attacked by municipalities and the media actually that ran a misinformation campaign on me and the channel. We got them to apologize for that actually and reverse some of their statements. But I made a new channel called The Mindset, where I'm going to be staying on top of what's going on out there, but not necessarily saturating real estate mindset with the content. I want you guys to be happy. So if you guys want to check that out, it's raw, it's unedited, there's no music. Well, actually, there is a little bit of music, but I've left this almost completely raw. That way, it's just pure truth. So this is one here on Serial 55. delivering permanent sheds during the holidays. Permanent sheds because that way the municipalities can't take them away like tiny homes. They're taking those away. And then in addition to that, guys, I want to remind you that I will have about 3 more videos come out for Hurricane Helene testimonies, and then we'll be back to the regular scheduled program as far as talking about the economy and the housing market. But if you guys want to come back and take a look, look at the work that we've done on the ground, it's under this playlist called Hurricane Helene Testimonies. I just put one out a day ago. Very, very heavy stuff, very immensely draining. It's very tricky. I think this is really important work. Some of the victims do not like what we're doing, but I would just like to remind them that if we don't tell this story, we don't tell their story or help them tell their story, it's going to be forgotten. And then the government and the media is going to tell their story, and they're not saying anything. So this is hard work. There's not a lot of people. There's some people that are angry, but I don't know what else to do except more truth, more light. Now, in addition to that, I want to remind you guys when you hit more on the video that's full of links, here's a link right here from an audit. If you guys want to audit the donations that I received, I got to do a second one as well. But also, you guys, one of the things I wanted to point out is not only is there links to what's going on in the video, but also step 1 and 2. Step 1 being the petition that we want you to sign with Mitch Vexler. So you can click on that. It'll take you here and you can sign the petition as far as property taxes. And then the second one is right here. These are courses, that I made with Mitch's help. I mean, I put my heart and soul. These are free courses. There's 2. There's Home Buying Masterclass. That's absolutely free for you guys because, again, we care about the community. And also Fight Property Tax. Again, this is free and made for the public. Some people have issues, but you should be able to access this even as the public without having to sign up. Look at all these chapters. I put a lot of time and effort into this. It's not perfect, but it's definitely going to tell you how to fight and protest the value. I mean, look at this, guys. This is free for you. I want you guys to take advantage of that, please. We're also going to start putting disclaimers on the video because we did get throttled back, in my opinion, illegally. And then a couple other things that I want to talk about. Mitch, I maybe this little bit, maybe a little premature, but Mitch is possibly going to be going on X. If that man goes on X, I will promise you, brother, we will push you so hard. You are a great writer, unlike me. Unfortunately, I'm better at being out of shape in the field than anything else. You're great at writing and math. Absolutely wonderful. So, guys, look out for that, Mitch. And let us know if you want Mitch to go on X. Comment below if you would follow him. He's a great writer. On top of that, some really exciting news. Now, this is premature, but Zero Hedge or someone recommended you reach out to Zero Hedge. So Mitch may be able to start writing with Zero Hedge, which would be absolutely phenomenal. Here's one article he's working on. Obviously, why is property tax illegal? I want you guys to know that this article, if you guys like it, email Zero Hedge. Email Zero Hedge if you like this. Let them know, like, hey, Mitch Vixler needs to be on your panel. He needs to be writing. He needs to be informing the public. This is going to be in the description of this video. There's going to be a link to this. It is, I think, 7 pages long, and this is absolutely incredible work, Mitch. I'm so proud of you and to be part of this. But it's going to be on the link, guys. So take a look at that. Now, in addition to that, I know, Mitch, you said don't tell anyone, but Mitch is also working on his website where, as we go into when the math starts to make sense, we'll be able to help some people. He has homework, consulting. It's not ready yet. That's a little bit on the housekeeping. I'm also super excited. We may have a third co-host. So we may have a third co-host, which will be incredibly helpful if I ever leave town to provide you guys with boots on the ground reporting. So I'm not just going to leave like I did before. We will have people backing us up. I'm really happy about that. We will make that announcement soon. And that's what I have for you guys. Knock out the apathy. Let us help lead you guys to a more financially secure future. Let us help you guys be safe. We're leading by example. We're using the math. Once again, happy Christmas Eve. Mitch, before we get him out of here, sir, is there anything final you'd like to say as we go into the holidays?
I think the summary of this video, even though the truth hurts, if you don't tell the truth, the ramifications of what we've seen with regard to the equity stripping is because the truth isn't being told. If you have a resume and you don't tell the truth in the resume, you're opening yourself up for more problems. So, like I said, yes, the truth can hurt, but better to know the truth than be fed a Marxist lie because that takes money out of your pocket. The equity stripping that I've been referring to is cumulative compound effect, and it all comes out of your pocket, our pockets. So even though I realize full well sometimes the truth bites, better to know the truth and be sold snake oil. And I think that's kind of the theme for this video because we've seen it firsthand. When people throttle back the truth, YouTube, you don't get to create a truth to suit your narrative. The truth is the truth. It's mathematically quantifiable. Taking money from mom and pop is mathematically quantifiable. Destroying their pensions, destroying their 401ks on deficits that cannot be paid back is mathematically quantifiable. The truth needs to be said, it needs to be dealt with, and where possible, the workouts have to occur so that there isn't sheer destruction of, as in 100% destruction of pensions and 401ks on the backs of mom and pop.
Amen, brother. Absolutely incredible, Mitch. And I hope that you do go on X, man. I hope you get super popular. I hope we do Zero Hedge, and I hope we do a newsletter one day. But other than that, guys, let us know how you felt about this video. Everything is linked below, and if you're out there just investing in real estate, living your life, you guys already know we wish you luck, and we hope you win.